There is a big difference between a cheap lens that actually works and a cheap lens that only looks good in YouTube reviews. I took the highly praised TTartisan 40mm on a trip to Japan and did a few sessions with it in my studio. When it works, it works. But when it fails, it does it with a style. You notice two things when you actually use it every day. First, the paint on the edges starts rubbing off after just 3 weeks in a backpack. Depending on your taste, you might love this instant vintage look or you might absolutely hate it. And secondly, while the lens is physically small, it isn't actually that light. If you compare its weight to the newly released Lumix 40mm, you realize they haven't bypassed the weight issue at all. But I don't really care about little scratched paint or few more grams. The real issue is what happens to the image quality. A lot of reviewers complain about heavy vignetting when shooting wide open at f2.0. To me, this is completely irrelevant. Vignetting is a one-click fix in post-production as long as you do not do any high-end campaign. What you cannot fix is the softness. The edges of the frame on this lens are incredibly soft. A lot of people online excuse soft edges and bad optics by calling it vintage character, but in my experience it completely lacks the organic feel of a true vintage lens. There is a very distinct line between a lens having a beautiful vintage soul crafted by cinema masters and a lens simply being optically garbage. But we live in a YouTube world where often anything else than a G-Master or Sigma art quality goes into artistic lens basket. This part of the video was shot on the lens we are talking about, and at the end of the day it will do the job. So what's this fuss all about? Don't get me wrong, my portfolio is mainly middle format analog photography where you have plenty of not so sharp images. And here you can see images taken with this exact lens on my Lumix S5II while shooting my last video. For this type of hobbyist photography, this works well. But this was a studio set with controlled lighting and no light sources in the frame. If you know what you are doing and you have low expectations, this lens works as good as every other cheap prime lens on the market. But think about the fundamental reason we use prime lenses in the first place. Historically, you sacrifice the convenience of a zoom lens for two specific reasons: superior image quality and a fast aperture to let in more light and obliterate the background. And you want to obliterate the background because this is the most efficient way to get approval from other artistic photography nerds. No irony there. Look what I've got for you for the next video. Don't judge. Sometimes everyone wants to be a photo nerd. I bought this TTartisan specifically to pair with my Lumix 20-60mm kit lens during trip to Japan. The idea was simple: use the convenient zoom during the day and when the sun goes down, switch to the prime lens. But with this lens, the entire logic falls apart, because shooting at f2.0 on this lens in such scenario is completely unacceptable. This lens produces the absolute worst flares I have ever seen. I haven't even seen any disposable camera with optics this bad. It's not a cool cinematic flare, it is a massive spill of milk that washes over the entire screen. The moment a light source enters or even grazes the edges of the frame, the image is destroyed. To be completely fair, I have one video clip from Japan where this milky flare at f2.8 probably actually looks incredible. It created this beautiful dreamy effect, but it was pure luck. If that exact same dreamy flare hits a different scene, it just looks like garbage. To fix this, you have to step down. At f2.8 the situation improves slightly, but the image is still constantly getting hit by fog. So you bought a fast prime lens, but to get a usable image you have to shoot at least f4. My Lumix kit lens shoots at f4, and at f4 it has vastly superior image quality, better sharpness, better contrast, and it doesn't destroy randomly my footage. And I am talking about Lumix 20-60mm that is notorious for problems with flares due to its huge front element. So you have a prime lens that doesn't give you a fast aperture and doesn't give you better image quality than a basic kit zoom. At least it is compact. There is also one technical flaw that can ruin this lens for video. The aperture changes in hard steps. If you try to shoot video in any auto mode, the exposure flickers aggressively every time the light changes. And I know some critics in the comments will immediately say, well, Real filmmakers shoot in full manual anyway. But let's be serious, this is a budget lens aimed at amateurs and solo creators who often rely on auto settings to get the shot. So if the optics are bad and the aperture steps are harsh, why not just buy an old manual 50mm 1.4? It has better character and costs less. The answer is usually the autofocus. Both the lens and my Lumix S5II were running the latest firmware, meaning TTartisan had almost a year since release to fix any software issues. In perfect light, taking a single photo, the autofocus is fine. But the moment conditions drop, the autofocus falls apart. My 20-60mm kit lens, which is much darker and had an ND filter permanently attached, acquired focus significantly better in those exact same dark Japanese streets. And there is this software glitch. Sometimes the lens just forgets how to focus to infinity. It completely locks up, and the only way to reset the algorithm is to physically twist the lens of the camera mount and reattach it. Before I wrap this up, I want to be completely fair to TTartisan as a brand. I actually own their 75 2.0. It has a very similar build and YouTubers constantly compare this 40mm to this 75mm. But let me be clear, they are in completely different class. The 75mm actually has very solid image quality. It proves that TTartisan is perfectly capable of making a good affordable lens. Also, they have completely bonkers of a lens offer with tilt shift and double bokeh functions. These are lenses for specific use, and I love that such brands deliver such fun lenses to the market for this cheap. It's just that these cheap all-around lenses are still hit or miss, and the YouTube community doesn't really help. And this is probably a funny situation, because Chinese cheap brands nowadays started to make lenses that are comparable quality to top Japanese glass. But in case of this 40mm, there were no suitable compact and fast autofocus primes for L-mount at the time, and the Lumix S9 users screamed for something like this for months. So TTartisan replied for the need with their 40mm, and thus the whole positive feedback, even though some reviewers did see that the optics are crap. And now we have plenty of similar lenses for the system. At the end of the day, whenever there is a competition, the consumer wins, and the first offering becomes the least appealing. So this 40mm is what I call a toy. A toy ought to be a bit unpredictable. It gives you random and unexpected results that can be often interpreted as fun experience. But a tool is something you can rely on. This lens destroyed 10 to 20% of my shots in Japan. In any series workflow, such amount of shots botched because of a lens flaw is enough to make you sell it instantly. Well, I guess that's my chance at a TTartisan sponsorship officially gone. Oh well, that's life.